Good morning, everyone. We welcome you to our Sunday morning roundtable discussion. And this is the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent in Plainfield, New Jersey. Thank you all for joining us. And we'll start today with our morning prayer.
This is a prayer by Mrs. Eddy from Watches, Prayers, and Arguments, page 69. The need of divine wisdom and love, Christ's assurance of prayer answered, and the absolute science of God's allness moves the Christian scientist to pray for the peace, prosperity, and brotherhood of all nations and peoples. No willpower is used in the scientist's prayer, since human will must be lost in the divine for prayer to be efficacious. In the words of Zechariah, not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, said the Lord of hosts. I would ask that all Christians unite in prayer for the cessation of sin, the oppression of the weak, the assertion of power at the sacrifice of individual rights, but especially that divine love shield the innocent from the wrath of the guilty and cause it to praise love. Mary Baker Eddy.
Beautiful. Thank you. All right, watching point, please.
Walking point number 284. Watch that your eye be single. A single eye is one that is watching cause or thought rather than effect. A double eye would be one that tried to watch both cause and effect. In an early edition of the textbook, we are told to watch our beliefs instead of our bodies. When our thought reaches out to principle, we cannot make the contact unless we have left all thoughts of effect behind, so that we may be absent from the body and present with the Lord. It is unscientific even to reach out for God in order to heal effect. Our whole object must be to correct our thinking without reference to effect. When this is accomplished, manifestation will take care of itself. When we strive to correct our thinking with the sole purpose of getting rid of some discordant manifestation, our eye is double. We are watching both our body and our beliefs. When one mixes cause and effect, it proves that he does not have a scientific understanding of metaphysics, which sets forth mind as cause. End quote.
Thank you. Very important. Any comments on that?
That
Yes.
that has been the biggest, for me, the biggest change, or the biggest thing I had to overcome since coming here was that. I always had the effect also while watching, and it's taken some time, but I finally have gotten it. Not that I'm perfect, certainly, but I sure know the difference, and it's made a big difference as a result.
Thank you. Who else?
I was saying that I realized to what extent I was double-eyed for so many years, because the very thing that I wanted to go away, I was carrying it. I was just taking it with me. A little look at I still feel so bad, and yet I'm saying, well, God didn't create this. So it's just, to look back at it now, I can't. It's laughable how ridiculous it was for so many years. I mean, if something gave me pain, I would still look at it as the cause. When we are to leave it all behind completely, this is not part of what God has created. It's not part of the scientific statement of being. And yet I was saying the scientific statement of being, and still, this is here, and fret over it, be frustrated, be depressed about it, all of that. That's that double-eyed that, it's like a runner that keeps looking back, going forward, but keeps looking back. You slow down. And I'm so grateful to really see all of that so clearly now.
Thank you. Yes, you slow down and you can also run into a tree. Well, I know you're not keeping your focus on God. It's a big temptation, and a lot of scientists do this. This is why these Carpenter books are so wonderful and invaluable. 500 watching points. Shardy, you wrote about it on the forum.
Yeah, it was so terrific, and it just clicked for me. And I'll read part of it. The Weekly Watch, it talks about keeping our eye on cause, not on effect. That it's exactly what Hannah did in 1 Samuel. Her total devotion to God was evident when she withstood the taunting about being childless without finding fault with her tormentor. Also, after her prayer was answered with the birth of Samuel, she delivered him to God at the temple to assist Eli. And her song, prayer, was to God cause, without elaborating on Samuel, which was effect. Her prayer was profound in her adoration for our one true God, his glorious triumphs, his awesome power, and his unsearchable wisdom. That's Samuel 2, 1-10. And this is wonderful for me to realize this. No matter what, look at cause, don't look at effect.
And the interesting thing is, as you do that, the healing comes and you barely remember it, or you don't even know it happened, because truly it didn't happen. It was nothing. You were giving it all the life and power it had. And once you start focusing on God, continually praising him, thanking him, understanding him, then this false belief just disappears. And I've had a lot of people, including myself, will say, oh, yeah, that was that problem I had a while ago. Some people forget even to mention it or give thanks for it. That's why it's good to keep a journal. And so you say, yeah, wow, that was an amazing healing I just had. Comes naturally and necessarily.
And we keep a journal not to remember the problem as a reality, but to remember God's allness and what he is and what that does for us.
Yeah, someone once said to write a thank you note to God. It's just a reminder to thank him and praise him and realize. And again, Mrs. Eddy says that this healing comes as naturally and as necessarily. Light gives way to darkness, and sin to reformation. Oh, sorry. Darkness gives way to light, and sin to reformation. Thank you, Carol. Yes. And that's it. When the light comes in the room, well, what happened to the darkness? It's just gone.
Where?
No darkness. All good. And I'd mentioned to a few people this week, we talk about this a lot, but there is this article called Slow Healing by Kate Buck on our website. Maybe we'll feature it this week. And it goes along with what we were talking about. The whole article should be read and studied, especially if your healing seems to be taking a while. But I'm just going to read a few things from it. The first, one who is seeking freedom and finds it delayed is often tempted to question, why am I so long in being healed? I read and study faithfully, do everything required of me, pray without ceasing. Yet conditions do not change. Others are healed quickly without any apparent understanding or knowledge of science and seemingly without any effort on their part. Whine, whine, whine. This may be true, but the fact remains that each one must walk in his own pathway and learn the lessons to be gained therein. My own healing in Christian Science was slow. The logic and theory of Christian Science was fairly clear to me within a month or two, but to trust it and make it practical took years. Looking back, I can see some reasons for delayed healing. In the first place, I believed absolutely in the reality and power of error which I suffered. Then, too, I wanted to be healed above all else. And this is sometimes disastrous. I read the textbook with the thought in mind of being healed. I would read a powerful statement and think, maybe this time I'll be healed. You hear it in the practice. Well, what more? Give me another statement of truth. Well, work with the one you gave.
Give me another pill.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Florence, you want to say?
No, I mean that's what I did, you know. But the thing is, this is why I love what Mrs. Wilcox says in her book, the chapter Healing. She says, you know, you could say to a patient, "I cannot heal you, that is restore you, but I can reveal you to yourself as you really are," which is what you said before. Now that we know what God is telling us, this is what we focus on, hold on to, cherish, and just love and make our own, instead of this, you know, bringing this along with us the whole time. Yeah, I mean, I did that, and as I said before, and that's how I'm so grateful to see it clearly.
Thank you. Yes, and sometimes you don't learn. You keep taking it with you. It's like Pilgrim's Progress. When Christian was going up the hill, he wouldn't put his backpack down. He kept carrying it with him. Finally, he put it down and said, "Wow, this feels great." And also in this article, she says, "I know in my own experience, it was not until one day I set the textbook down and said, well, whether I'm ever healed or not, I am certainly finding God as I never knew him before. Then better conditions began to be manifested. I turned to Christian Science with the thought of finding God. Then the suffering lessened and finally vanished. I thought less about the body, and naturally it troubled me less." Too soon we cannot turn from disease in the body to find disease in the mortal mind and its cure in working for God. That's that key. Focusing on the Father, focusing on the good, all the wonderful blessings you already have. Sometimes it just seems to, you don't even think about it. You're just obsessed with this problem and mad at the world, mad at God. It's not going to bring
yourself.
Mad at yourself.
Or other people.
Other people. So, everyone wants a magic wand treatment, but honestly, my feeling is, then go to the medical. That's not a magic wand treatment either, but it's you know, you want just some quick fix. Christian Science is different. True healing is different.
And this is Eddie warns us, I think in the textbook, not to look to the body for the evidence of spiritual growth, because you won't find it. I mean, how silly.
It's true. And that's why I've given this assignment to many people, because Mr. Evans had given it to me. Tell me of the progress you've made. Well, and they won't do it, or they say they haven't made any. But that's because they keep looking at their big toe that they want to be healed. Mm-hmm. And they're missing all the things that have been going on. And when they don't do it or won't do it, they're just prolonging their problem till they get obedient and decide, oh yeah, I did make progress. I'm a little happier this week, or you know, or someone did something kind for me, or whatever good has transpired.
And I think
says,
Florence,
go ahead.
Mrs. Eddy says that she calls it mental quackery, to hold the reality of that which is untrue, and in an attempt to heal it. It's mental quackery. When I was reminded of that, I thought, whoa.
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I also think that maybe this is something that's helpful when every day that any truth that rings true to your heart, if we're grateful for it, I mean, maybe we should, write a thank you note to God every day. Thank you for, you know, some truth that comes through. And then this way, we will be focusing on the truth, what God is saying to us directly. I think it's so, how much I just passed over, you know. I learned some truth, oh, wow. And yet I didn't make anything of it, instead of being really grateful for it and taking it into my heart. That's not what I did. And so, with the years in the wilderness, well, I deserved it, I'm sure.
Yes. And me too. How long, O Lord? As long as you deny my omnipotence.
Allness.
Yeah, my allness. It's up
There
to
was
you.
I don't know. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. It's Kara. There was a legend apparently that was read in Mrs. Eddy's home, and it's helped me so many times about a river that froze in the winter, and the river kept saying, when am I going to become a river again? I just keep getting harder and harder, and now I'm frozen all the way down to the bottom. But every day the sun would shine on the river. And sometimes as the sun shone more each day, the river would break apart and the river would say, I'm going to become a river again. And then, night would come and the river would freeze up again and the river would lose hope. But eventually the sun kept shining and the sun kept shining. And one day all the ice just broke up and floated away. And the legend said that was read, it wasn't just that last day of the sun shining on that river that broke up the ice. It was all the days of the sunshine and all the days of the freezing. And it reminds me every time, and I really love that, to look every single day to see where the sun has shone that day. Where has the truth come in? Where have I seen the allness of God? And really lent into that instead of peeking, as I think it was, I don't know who it was, which one said that, but stop peeking and see where that sun is shining, where God is coming through. And that's really helped me. I love that legend.
Thank you. That's beautiful. That is on our website as well, so you can find it. What is it called? The Frozen River.
Frozen River.
Yeah.
And
Beautiful.
we'll definitely feature it in January.
Yeah. We usually that and
every year.
and Little Brown Duck Chingy Biss and some of the other beautiful stories we have. Thank you, Kara.
But this is why Mrs. Eddy says the purpose of Christian Science is not just for physical healing alone. That's often how a lot of people discover the science and come to it, is when they are healed. But what is the greater purpose? What is the real purpose of Christian Science?
Heal the sins of the world.
Wow.
Yeah, to get rid of every wrong belief. Every wrong belief. The sins of the world. And that's why we can't focus on the body to see if we're getting better or not. Because where does the spiritual progress take place?
Conscious.
In thought.
Yeah, in my consciousness.
Yeah, and I love that even in that watching point, Carpenter brings out, well, you can't say, well, I'm gonna fix my consciousness so my body feels better. Because that's, again, just all double-minded. It's all human, and a lot of that is done. And that's why you say, well, I've been, just as was quoted, I've been praying unceasingly. I'm reading, I'm studying, I understand, but still this isn't working out. So you're double-minded, and it will continue to go on until you get that singleness of purpose. And it was in the lesson this week, the word purpose. The Lord of hosts hath sworn, saying, surely as I have thought, so shall it come to pass. And as I have purposed, so shall it stand. And that word, intended, designed. And then we believe the Supreme Being created intelligent beings for some benevolent and glorious purpose. Purpose. And I feel this is a large part of the theme of this lesson, is our purpose. God, the only cause and creator, is our subject, and the golden text, Lil.
The Lord hath made all things for himself.
Yes. And as I said yesterday, I truly feel most of the troubles in this world, certainly drugs and alcohol, suicide, it stems from this. You don't know your purpose. You don't know your God-given divine destiny. We were taught here a lot. You have a divine destiny. You would also seem to have this human destiny, which is the Adam dream. But you're born into matter, you'll die out of it, and everything in between is pretty awful. So let's not choose that one, but our divine destiny. And it says in the responsive reading, at the very bottom, I have raised him up, I have raised you up in righteousness, and I will direct all your ways. When you come into this divine destiny, God is directing all your ways, and you can't be without his presence and power. How do you find it? You ask for it. You keep asking for it, and he'll direct you. It'll come, but you have to desire it more than anything else.
Each has his own purpose.
Each has his own purpose. Everyone is different. That's why you can't try to be like someone else. You can't listen to what other people are telling you is your destiny. You've got to find it, and God speaks through you.
And it's possible to do it. People have done it. And the reason it's possible to do it is because it's a fact. This is not a human opinion. This is not an alternative way of living. This is a fact. We all have a divine purpose, which means we all have a good purpose, a purpose determined by our Creator. And if we accept that, we will live it. And we'll have a very useful, productive life. And if we fight it, well, we fight it to our own detriment.
Isn't the most, but you only hear it if you're listening, right? Because I remember as I was growing up, people would always, every day, would give God thanks. And I find that sometimes if families were pulled away and they have to get back to saying that prayer, giving thanks, asking God, and then they hear what it is, the purpose that they're here for. Otherwise, the noise seems to crowd it out.
Thank you.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Craig.
And each one important, right? Part of the whole.
Yes. Yes. Everyone, whatever it is, and follow that. It's an intuition. It's something that gives you joy and you feel peaceful and happy about it. And it goes throughout your life. It will tell you, if it's right for you to marry someone or not, or where you should live, or what you should do, always talking to you, directing you. In Isaiah or Exodus, for this cause have I raised thee up, for to show in thee my power, and that my name may be declared throughout all the earth. For this cause I have raised thee up. He will raise you up. That's why when you don't speak the truth, when you think you don't want to give a testimony or you don't want to help your neighbor or whatever else, that's part of finding your destiny, because your destiny is always going to involve helping others in a divine way, in God's way, not in a human do-goody way. So remember, for this cause, God has raised you up. And why? To show thee my power, and that my name may be declared throughout all the earth. Think if everyone had found this destiny, this purpose, how happy the world would be. This is heaven on earth. This is what you must teach your children, as Craig just says. Teach your children this. They need to know their divine destiny so they don't get bollocksed up in the Adam dream.
They at least need to know that they have one and that they can find it if they want to. And this is the beauty of where we are on this earth. We're all different. We all have different talents. We all have different skills. And we're all part of one whole where we help each other out. We're not all carpenters. We're not all the same. And why not? How boring, how difficult life would be if we were all the same. But we're different because it reflects the infinitude of God's creation. There will never, ever be two people identical. There will never, ever be a place that anybody on earth can't fill. In other words, everybody, there will always be a place for everybody, because God is infinite. Good is infinite. There's never, ever going to be a limit. imposed by God. If we feel limitation, well, that's animal magnetism. That's a false belief. And we have every right to resist it.
Yes. And in finding this science and studying Bible, Science and Health prose works, it will lead you aright. You'll find it. And children naturally have it. Very often they express it. Sometimes their parents have other ideas in mind for them, but let the children unfold as they should, like flowers. You think of the beautiful creation, the beautiful flowers, trees, everything different, everything beautiful, everything bursting forth and unfolding in perfection. Consider the lilies. It's beautiful.
And that's one of the childlike qualities that we as adults should never lose.
Yes. Yeah. So let God work through you to find what he would have you do. And it always goes back to, for this cause I've raised thee up, for to show in thee my power, and that my name may be declared throughout all the earth. That's why you were raised. And he has made you for himself. And this is a big little misunderstanding, because many people think God is for them. Okay, God, I want to be a lawyer. I want to go to this school, and I want to marry that person, and you better make it happen. See, that's how you get off track, because your will or you've been educated in the wrong paths. You think this is what you want and have to do, and God is there to make it happen. And I want all the health and money and everything else that goes with it, God. And if you don't give me that, I'm mad at you. And I don't believe Christian Science works. And if you don't think I haven't heard it, think again, because I haven't. I probably felt that way to some degree myself at times. That
distant past.
Yeah, right. Well, anyway, see, that's all wrong. You're saying God is created for your purpose. Well, how stupid is that when you think about it? You were created for his purpose. So get that straight in your head, and then things will work out.
And I think that's also why we should come to know that we are all worthy, because that sense of, I'm no good, or whatever happened in the past, makes me not worthy. That feeling of unworthiness, I hear quite a bit in the practice, and that's not accepting what God is saying you are, right?
That's right. Because if you are his image and likeness, how could you be unworthy? And if you entertain that, who's saying that? I love that testimony that Sherry gave a while ago. Who's talking? Who's talking?
Ginger's not talking.
That's not God telling you. Does God say you're unworthy? I don't think so.
No.
Well, but this is a good point. What is it that makes us worthy? How is it that we are worthy? Is our human intelligence worthy? Is our human will worthy? No.
Yeah.
No. All these human qualities that if we insist upon carrying with us, they will always let us down. They are not what is worthy.
And
but as the image and likeness of God,
yes,
is that worthy?
Mm-hmm.
Darn
Let
right.
it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we get those, if you've been living this human life and all those things, then you get the thought, yeah, you're unworthy. But that doesn't mean, that's why she says you can change. Begin today, change, and get into the true sense of who and what you are, and drop that past, that former sense of selfhood. You can drop it all and know that you were made for God, and he has something wonderful for you to do, and get rid of all the human will.
And Mrs. Eddy said about herself, and I don't have the quote exactly, but to paraphrase, she once told someone that as the person, Mary Baker Eddy, she's one of the weakest people on earth. Mm-hmm. But as the discoverer and founder of Christian Science, she is the bone and sinew of the universe.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a correct quote, but that's the point.
It's close.
Close.
Close. I love that. Mm-hmm. And that is how. And so sometimes, very often, people will say, well, I just can't heal. And I say, yes, that's true. You cannot. You're totally incapable of healing. Only God can heal. You see, it's this false ego of self that keeps popping up. So get rid of self. That's what Gary was talking about, all the self things, the human things, and find yourself in God. And that's the new birth that goes on hourly, as Mrs. Eddy says.
And if you know that all these human qualities are totally unworthy, then you're on the right track. But if you think that you have some really outstanding human qualities that are really worthy, well, that's the problem.
Double-eyed, right?
Yeah.
And this is where the humility comes in, because, man, there's something about this human sense of man that I want to be great. And yeah, I did something great. And yeah, I made straight A's somewhere, or I did this or that. I, me, myself. And that's the false ego talking. Who's talking? And sometimes that sounds good. That's your pride. Oh, man, I'm great. And that's where the humility, and usually when you go along that path, what happens to you?
It's taken away from you.
You crash, fall flat on your face. Boy, did I ever do that many, many times. Just smack flat on my face.
There's a really good article on our website by William Kirkpatrick, The Pioneer of Truth is Blessed. And he goes through the 7 synonyms, and I'll just read one sentence, which he refers to mind. Mind, in adhering to a progressive spiritual idea, mind loves me in a boundless measure. Mind loves me so much that only mind's idea can come to me, influence me, abide with me, and operate as me. I found that very helpful.
Thank you. Yes, that's a wonderful article. I have to say, what we have on our website, again, is the creme de la creme. I was going to let Jeremy talk for a few minutes in ways that people can help us.
Okay. Well, we certainly have, the website has a lot on it. And a fair majority of it, such as all the books that are on there, need to be proofread to make sure they're 100%. So if someone wants to start taking that up, just email me and I'll put your name on the list so that nobody doubles up on the work, and that would be wonderful. Absolutely. And also, if you are proficient at typing, there are still a few books left that we need typed up, so that would be really wonderful as well.
He also was saying, if there are any churches out there who want to become independent.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've been working so hard to get this stuff ready that if another church came along and wanted to go independent and wanted to fill their website out, let's say, with the works of Mrs. Eddy and stuff, I have all the files ready to give you.
In that way.
That would be wonderful to get that stuff out there.
We really encourage your joining in and helping us. Occasionally we have people who think up new projects to give us. And we don't mean to be ungracious about that, but we have our hands full. So it will be put on a list that Jeremy has, 10 years, 5 years, or what?
It's getting longer.
It's getting longer.
15-year plan.
15-year plan, because they're just not that, if you haven't figured it out, there are not that many of us here in Plainfield. And although many of you can do things where you are, some of it needs training, and mainly it needs a demonstrating thought. So just come in quietly, gently, slowly, learning and feeling your way, and you will find out the ways that God has raised you up to contribute to this great and mighty cause. But when you come with, projects, sometimes we don't feel maybe they're appropriate, at least not for the moment, or we just can't do it. And so you're put on a list, perhaps. But we do not mean to be ungrateful or ungracious about it. I think sometimes we kind of go,
Well, one thing I've learned is that part of the demonstration of that kind of thing, because occasionally I have to give proposals to the board for a new project. Part of that demonstration is giving that proposal at the right time too.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, listen and be wise. And again, I emphasize, I'm not sure we're going to add much in the way of books and other things to our website. For one thing, people have said it's huge. You could spend years. We've got really good stuff here. And most of the other stuff that comes to us, people are always sending us things they wrote and things they love or whatever. Well, good. But whether we're going to put that on our website, probably not. So thank you anyway. And maybe it'll go to our library, but our website is very sacred and pure, and we're very careful what we add to it. That's in this week's lesson, too, about adding to it or taking from it. And many of the things that we have were established years ago when the Evanses were here, and their wisdom directed it. And I know you like a variety of things, and that's fine, and you can read them and like them, but whether we add them to our website is a different matter. So,
so just to add to that is, yes, these things can be added to the library, and I know Linda maintains a Dropbox, so sometimes if it's electronic, she just saves a lot of stuff there. But that's not going to the website.
Thank you.
That's the library.
Thank
and
you.
That's easy to do if it's electronic.
Thank you.
I'd also say the second thing when it comes to projects, this is true of all organizations. Everybody has lots of great ideas, and they are great ideas. But when it comes to a great idea, then think about, okay, if I want this idea to happen, maybe I should be working on it.
Thank you very much. And that's true. We usually put it back to the person. Tom came up with two really great ideas. One was the Bible study. The other was the adding to our library. And those were great ideas, and he took a large part of that, and we were able to incorporate them, and a few other people joined. But the time had come for it, as Jeremy said, and it just sat right. It was, yes, this is great, good. He also
didn't just drop it at the door. He took part in it.
He did. So thank you, Tom.
Well, and all of this is to say that the church has to be and must continue to be God's demonstration.
Yes.
And Mrs. Eddy had there was a sign somewhere in Mrs. Eddy's house that said demonstration or nothing. We have it in our print room on the wall, demonstration or nothing. So if you get an idea, if it's from God, we will all know, and there will be a way to implement it. But if it's not of God, it can't, it won't work.
And we don't mean to discourage you in any ways, because sometimes you can't tell until you try it and then ask, and then, but I guess I'm mainly saying we don't mean to be ungrateful or ungracious if we don't accept your thoughts right away.
Well, and I think the point is we're here to facilitate God's direction.
Yes.
God's activity. We're here to facilitate that. We want above all else to make sure that this church remains a spiritual organization and not a human organization.
Yes.
So when God gives one of you a project or an idea, we're here to implement it. And people like Thomas and others of you who have gotten the good idea and have implemented it understand how that works. We're here to let God work through as many people as he chooses or as they choose to let God work through them.
And remember all of this, and in life, it's all about unfoldment and not accretion. Unfoldment is unfolding from within. It's the flower just blossoming. The time is right. It comes, it flows. Accretion is adding on, more and more stuff. We're not interested in accretion. It's got to be unfoldment. So
yeah, we have a lot of books that are extremely useful. In addition to the textbook and the Bible, we even have the Bible now. What we
thank
need
you,
more than
Jeremy.
anything else is everybody to demonstrate this science in their lives.
Yes.
That is what is needed.
And that is why we do these classes. It's been so sweet. Some of you, I heard from someone who had been in a church in California, and she said all the church members there follow us entirely. They listen to the roundtable before they go to their church service. And then there's another, in England who are, oh no, don't have anything to do with that church. Well, now we understand they're all listening secretly. So anyhow,
hello to them.
Yes, hello. We say hello to all of you. Thank you all for joining us. We're very grateful. And I found this. I thought this was a very interesting point. This is The Art of War by a Chinese military strategist named, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, Sun Tzu.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself, but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer defeat. If you know not neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. This is what we do here. It's impersonal to help you, because we are in a warfare, and you need to know yourself. Last week we learned more about knowing the enemy in the lesson on animal magnetism. This week it's been cause and creator, to know yourself. Because when you know them both, what does it say? You need not fear the result of 100 battles. But if you only know yourself, which is a lot of Christian scientists only want to know the love stuff, but don't know your enemy, you might suffer some victories, but you'll also suffer defeats. And then the last is the saddest. And that's what you see happening. People floundering around because they don't know themselves and they don't know the enemy, and they're being taken over. In the lesson, Mrs. Eddy says, in citation 6, matter, which takes divine power into its own hands and claims to be a creator, is a fiction in which paganism and lust are so sanctioned by society that mankind has caught their moral contagion. All of this is contagion, hypnotism. That's why you got to know what's going on. And paganism, worship of false gods. And then this was a quote from the 1828 dictionary. Men instructed from their infancy in the principles and duties of Christianity never sink to the degradation of paganism. Again, many people who are so mixed up, and even in Christian Science, even after being class taught, even after all this, they're still so mixed up because they've never read the textbook. Not really, not from start to finish, not as a textbook. They've never studied the Bible, nor do they ever know anything about prose works. You've got to know this. It must be studied and implemented in your life. Then you will know yourself. You will also know your enemy, because Mrs. Eddy speaks of it many, many times. And I think it's so interesting that paganism and lust are sanctioned by society, and they are. And that's why to send your children off in the world without having them know themselves is foolishness. That mankind has caught their moral contagion. So, very important.
It's a hard thought that not preparing your children is sending them out to certain defeat. So.
Yes.
Well, and as a society, if we don't embrace the Christian principles in our schools and in our churches, that is a recipe for national suicide. I mean, it may take years to feel the effect of it,
And it has taken years, and we are feeling the
But
effect of it
we're
now.
feeling it now.
So this is, but one with God is a majority, and all of this is not the truth. It's illusion. Therefore, it's nothing to fear or be upset about. We can, just as Mary brought forth the Christ Jesus in the Roman Empire. As I've said, those words give me the chills. The dark night of materiality. Their praying, their steadfastness brought forth something wonderful. Small group of metaphysical thinkers. And so can we. And so are we. But we mustn't stop. We must give it all our attention. That's why the watches are so important. So, anyone else?
I love the way that Mrs. Evans and you and Mary Baker Eddy gave us the groundwork where we are very rarely fooled, and no one has to be, by the ways, the wily tricks of our enemy. So,
thank you.
Which means so much, because then you could just, poo-poo it and then go about your business doing the right things and be effective and be helpful and then silence it also. But that is crucial, because otherwise so much effort and time and suffering is wasted,
Thank you.
Thank you. And where is the enemy anyway? What is the enemy?
Animal magnetism.
It's all the false beliefs that are parading around trying to be recognized as true. And if we know ourselves, and if we know the enemy when we see it, we won't become part of the enemy. We won't entertain it. We won't feed it. But if we don't know ourselves and don't know the enemy, we will become part of the enemy. We will become the enemy.
Yeah, we will become the enemy.
We will become part of the problem instead of the solution. And how many humanly good people are part of the problem today? Because they don't know the enemy.
They don't understand human goodness. And, that was so brought out in the Carpenter books. That's why the repression of those books was criminal. Another thing someone told me, and that Mrs. Evans used to talk about this too, it was a teacher that she had, Christian Science teacher. She, I guess at first liked her, but when she started the class, she didn't. And she said later she found out that person, that teacher, was quoting exactly from the Bicknell Young books. She found that out because she saved her notes, and she's been reading the Bicknell Young books now. Mrs. Evans said this was going on. They were quoting from these, quote, unauthorized people. Books, yeah.
In their classes.
In their classes, giving no credit, which is a form of plagiarism and dishonesty, which forfeits divine help. And then that teacher told them that if they had any unauthorized literature, they were to burn it. And at that point, this person left the class. Now that's like Nazi Germany. Right. I keep hearing these stories. Usually I don't always remember to tell you these stories, but I mean, this shows a criminal element, and the organization has been invaded because they didn't know the science.
And they disobeyed the manual.
And they disobeyed the manual. They certainly didn't know the enemy. They didn't know how to handle any of this. And so they have become part of the problem. So, but by teaching...
So if I may add, I was reading about Ralph Waiters this week, and there's he's given a talk, and he does quote from an unauthorized book. He mentions what the book is, but he has a tortured way of saying why he's using this from an unauthorized book. It was very tortured wording. Mm-hmm. He did give credit where it came from.
He did, yeah.
But he felt, constricted in using this stuff. So he agreed with it and wanted to use it, but, he had to follow the organization, I guess.
Well, that's the problem. He, at least he was honest about it, but he was still part of the organization. at the time. And that is the difficulty that practitioners who are still part of the organization, teachers who are still part of the organization, and lecturers who are still part of the organization have a problem. They're trying to straddle the fence. They've got 1 foot in and 1 foot, hopefully, trying to be out. But if they don't stand up to the enemy that is within the organization, they can't really practice the science effectively. Because what is the law of life, truth, and love? It's a law of
I am all
to everything unlike itself. And if we don't stand for the annihilation of everything that is unlike life, truth, and love, and honesty, then we're not there yet.
They're shirking their responsibility.
We have a responsibility. Yes. Thank you, Craig. We have a responsibility, and that's what it means to take up the cross. Because to stand up to what is not right is not a comfortable thing to do.
And for this cause, you were raised up, okay? And sometimes what you're given to do, as in the case of Jonah, you don't want to do it. You end up in the belly of a whale. So sometimes we gotta take up this cross and walk the walk, not just talk it, but walk it. And that sometimes meets with great resistance.
But the battle is the Lord's.
Yes. Yes.
God supports those who do right.
In my reading of prose works yesterday, I read this is on the bottom of page, retrospection and introspection on page 90. It is safe to leave with God the government of man. He appoints and he anoints his truth bearers, and God is their sure defense and refuge. So that is the truth. And as we are all in the one mind, God speaks to us directly, but yet we'll come together on many issues where there's so much division right now. We're going to end today because I thought this was so beautiful. It was about the story of Hannah. It's a prayer by Spurgeon. For this child I prayed. And Thomas did a beautiful job with our Bible study yesterday on that beautiful story of Hannah. So
this is Charles Spurgeon. Devout souls delight to look upon those mercies which they have obtained in answer to supplication, for they can see God's especial love in them. When we can name our blessings, Samuel, that is, asked of God, they will be as dear to us as her child was to Hannah. Peninnah had many children, but they came as common blessings, unsought in prayer. Hannah's one heaven-given child was dearer far, because he was the fruit of earnest pleadings. How sweet was that water to Samson, which he found at the well of him that prayed. Quassia cups turn all waters bitter, but the cup of prayer puts a sweetness into the draughts it brings. Did we pray for the conversion of our children? How doubly sweet when they are saved, to see in them our own petitions fulfilled. Better to rejoice over them as the fruit of our pleadings than as the fruit of our bodies. Have we sought of the Lord some choice spiritual gift? When it comes to us, it will be wrapped up in the gold cloth of God's faithfulness and truth, and so be doubly precious. Have we petitioned for success in the Lord's work? How joyful is the prosperity which comes flying upon the wings of prayer. It is always best to get blessings into our house in the legitimate way, by the door of prayer. Then they are not blessings indeed, and not temptations. Even when prayer speeds not, the blessings grow all the richer for the delay. The child Jesus was all the more lovely in the eyes of Mary, when she found him after having sought him sorrowing. That which we win by prayer, we should dedicate to God, as Hannah dedicated Samuel. The gift came from heaven. Let it go to heaven. Prayer brought it. Gratitude sang over it. Let devotion consecrate it. Here will be a special occasion for saying, of thine own have I given unto thee. Reader, is prayer your element or weariness? Which?
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.